I never thought I'd be the kind of man who told stories like this. You know the type. Older guys leaning against a bar counter, a glass of something half empty in front of them, voice low and steady as they talk about the woman who broke their life in two. I used to think those men were pathetic, stuck in the past, clinging to a version of love that had already slipped through their fingers. But life has a cruel way of turning us into the very things we used to mock. And so here I am, years later, telling you about the woman I thought I knew better than anyone, and the betrayal I never saw coming. Her name was Rachel. We met in the most ordinary way possible, through friends at a late-night diner. It wasn't fireworks at first. She didn't sweep me off my feet like some cliché movie scene. She was just sharp. Her eyes had that restless kind of energy, like she was always 2 steps ahead of everyone else in the room. When she laughed, it wasn't polite or restrained. It was raw, unfiltered, and it drew me in without me realizing it. I told myself I was just curious. But curiosity can be a dangerous seed. It doesn't take long before it roots itself deep inside you, until suddenly it's not curiosity anymore. It's need. Rachel had this way of making you feel like the only man alive. I'd never had someone look at me the way she did, like every word out of my mouth was worth hearing, like I mattered. For a guy like me, someone who had spent too much of his life drifting from job to job, woman to woman, it was intoxicating. She made me believe I was more than the sum of my mistakes. And that belief was addictive. The first year with her was like living inside a fever dream. We traveled when we could, ate at hole-in-the-wall places, argued about music and films until dawn. She was wild but not reckless, fiery but not cruel. At least, not then. I should have noticed the shadows sooner, the little tells in her behavior, but I was blind in all the ways men in love usually are. There were nights she disappeared into herself, sitting on the balcony smoking in silence, eyes unfocused like she was somewhere I couldn't follow. I chalked it up to mood swings. Everybody has them, right? But deep down I knew. I just didn't want to face what that silence really meant. It wasn't until our 3rd year together that things began to change. Subtly at first. She started working later. Said the promotion she was chasing required more of her time. I didn't question it. I wanted to believe her ambition was real, that she was just chasing a better life for us both. But then there were the calls. Always stepping out of the room, always with that same half-smile, as if the voice on the other end carried some private joke I wasn't meant to hear. My gut twisted, but I swallowed it. Trust is what makes relationships work, I told myself. Accusations ruin them. So I kept quiet, even as the unease grew. The night that changed everything is still burned into my memory. It was raining, one of those relentless downpours that makes the whole city feel heavy. She hadn't come home yet. Said she was stuck finishing a project with her team. Midnight rolled around, and something in me snapped. I couldn't sit on that couch another minute pretending I didn't feel what I felt. So I grabbed my keys and drove. Not to her office. That would have been too obvious. I drove to the little bar she used to mention, the one she claimed her colleagues liked. I don't know why I chose that place. Call it instinct. Call it desperation. But when I pushed open the door and scanned the room, I saw her. And she wasn't alone. She was sitting in a booth, head tilted toward a man I'd never seen before. He wasn't handsome in the traditional sense, but there was something about the way he leaned in, confident and familiar, that made my stomach clench. Her laughter, it wasn't the laugh she gave me. It was sharper, more deliberate, like she was trying to show him a side of herself that wasn't mine to share. I stood there too long, frozen, watching. My first instinct wasn't rage. It was disbelief, the kind that makes your whole body go numb. Like maybe if you blink hard enough, the image will dissolve and you'll wake up back on your couch, waiting for her key in the lock. But it didn't dissolve. She touched his hand across the table, and something inside me broke. I walked out before she saw me, the rain soaking through my clothes as I stumbled back to the car. I didn't confront her that night. I couldn't. I needed proof, something undeniable, because even in that moment of betrayal, I still wanted to believe in her. That's the sickest part of it all. Even when you know you've been cut open, you keep hoping the blade was an accident. What followed was weeks of quiet suspicion, of me turning into someone I barely recognized. Checking her phone when she showered. Tracking her work schedules, her excuses, her stories. And every time, there was just enough plausibility to keep me second-guessing myself. That's how betrayal works. It's not always a clean wound. Sometimes it's a slow infection, spreading quietly until you can't tell where the pain started or how deep it runs. I wish I could say I walked away then, spared myself the worst of it. But I didn't. Because the truth was, I was already too far gone. And Rachel hadn't even shown me the real depths of her cruelty yet. Looking back, I think the worst part wasn't the betrayal itself, it was the waiting. That stretch of time between suspicion and certainty eats at you in ways you can't explain to anyone who hasn't lived it. Every smile she gave me, every casual touch, every good morning, over coffee, it all felt poisoned. Like I was watching a performance, a show carefully staged to keep me in the dark. And yet, I played my role like a fool, nodding, laughing, pretending I believed her lines, while my gut screamed the truth. I started following her. That's not something I'm proud of, but when a man's heart is on the line, shame takes a back seat. I waited outside her office building a few nights, sitting in my car like some private investigator with nothing but desperation for credentials. Most nights, she came out alone, tired, dragging her bag behind her. And for a brief second, I'd almost convinced myself I was wrong, that maybe she was innocent after all. But then there were the nights she didn't leave at all. Or at least, not through the front door. I knew she was too smart to get sloppy, but still, I couldn't shake the image of that man at the bar. It wasn't long before I saw him again. His name was Marcus, I would later learn, but at the time he was just a shadow standing too close to what was mine. I caught them together outside her office, both laughing under a single umbrella, bodies brushing as they walked. I remember the way she tilted her face toward him, like she used to tilt it toward me when I first told her I loved her. That small, almost unconscious gesture that says, I trust you. I want more of you. It was enough to make my hands tremble against the steering wheel. I didn't confront her then, either. My logic was twisted. I thought if I let it play out, if I gathered enough evidence, she wouldn't be able to lie her way out of it. But the truth? I was afraid. Afraid that once the words left her mouth, yes, I'm with him, there'd be no going back. At least in suspicion, I still had a version of her to hold on to. But secrets have a way of rotting everything around them. My friends started noticing the cracks. I wasn't sleeping much. I drank more than I should have. I avoided invitations, too afraid I'd slip up and spill the whole damn story. And Rachel, she noticed too. She'd brush my cheek and ask, Are you okay? You seem distant lately. That almost broke me. The audacity of her asking about my distance, when she was the one vanishing into someone else's arms. But I bit my tongue, smiled, and said I was fine. Because admitting otherwise would mean opening the floodgates, and I wasn't ready for the storm. The breaking point came on a Saturday. We were supposed to spend the day together, something we hadn't done in weeks. She suggested a hike, said she wanted fresh air and a break from the city. I agreed, half relieved that maybe she was still trying. But when morning came, she changed the plan. Something came up at work, she said, kissing my forehead before slipping out the door. This time, I didn't just sit at home. I followed. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears as I tailed her cab across town. She wasn't headed toward her office, and I knew in my bones, that the truth was finally about to show its face. The cab stopped near a quiet residential street, far from downtown. She stepped out, and moments later, there he was. Marcus, waiting for her like he'd been doing it for years. She smiled when she saw him, that same unguarded smile she used to save for me. And then she kissed him. Not a polite peck, not a friendly gesture, but the kind of kiss that seals secrets, the kind that burns. My chest tightened so violently, I thought I'd pass out right there behind the wheel. I should have stormed over. I should have ended it then and there. But instead, I sat frozen, watching them disappear into his apartment. Minutes dragged into an hour, and still I couldn't move. By the time I drove home, my hands were shaking so badly I could barely keep the car on the road. That night, when she returned, she acted normal. She curled up beside me on the couch, head on my shoulder, as though she hadn't just spent the day with another man. That's when I realized the true cruelty of it. Betrayal isn't always about the act itself. It's about the audacity of pretending nothing happened, of weaving lies so seamlessly into the fabric of your shared life that you start questioning your own reality. But here's the thing, I didn't end it. Not that night, not the next. Because somewhere inside me, there was still this pathetic hope that she'd come back, that she'd choose me again if I just held on a little longer. I told myself she was confused, that Marcus was a mistake, that we had too much history to throw away. It took something far darker, something I never could have predicted, to finally break the illusion. And when it came, it didn't just shatter our relationship. It shattered the man I thought I was. You'd think betrayal had a bottom, that once you saw the kiss, the lies, the secret apartment visits, there'd be nothing left to discover. But I learned the hard way. There's always a deeper cut waiting. And Rachel had a way of driving the blade in slow, twisting it until I wasn't sure if I was bleeding out or just imagining it. Weeks passed in a blur of silence and pretense. I didn't confront her, though every night I rehearsed the words in my head. Who is he? How long has it been? Do you even love me anymore? But when she came home, smiling, humming some tune as she kicked off her shoes, the words died on my tongue. I told myself I was waiting for the right moment, but the truth was uglier. I was terrified of hearing her confirm what I already knew. One night, I got drunk enough to dial Marcus's number. I'd found it on her phone, saved under some harmless female name. I called, but when he answered, I froze. His voice was calm, steady, confident in a way that cut right through me. "Hello," he said. I hung up before I could say a word. My hand shook so hard the phone nearly slipped from my fingers. For hours I sat in the dark, staring at the screen, replaying his voice over and over. It wasn't just the voice of a lover. It was the voice of a man who thought he'd already won. I couldn't take it anymore. I needed answers, needed the truth spilled out in the open, even if it destroyed me. So the next evening, I told her I wanted to talk. She looked at me across the dinner table, fork hovering in midair, and for a second I thought I saw fear flash in her eyes. But then she smiled, soft and practiced, and said, "Sure. What's on your mind?" The words stuck in my throat. I stared at her, this woman I thought I knew, and I realized something chilling. She wasn't going to confess. Not on her own. She'd keep lying until the very end, until I dragged the truth out piece by piece. And worse, I couldn't tell if she was lying because she wanted to protect me, or because she didn't think I deserved the truth at all. So I stayed quiet. Cowardly, maybe, but survival takes strange shapes when your world's crumbling. Instead of confrontation, I slipped deeper into obsession. I followed her again, more than once, always careful to stay back. Sometimes she went home to Marcus. Other times she really did stay at work. That almost hurt more. The idea that she still balanced both lives, still carved out pieces of herself for me. As if I were some project she wasn't ready to abandon. Then came the night that cracked everything wide open. I was sitting in my car outside Marcus's apartment, watching the windows like a madman. Rain smeared the glass, and I kept wiping it with my sleeve, convinced I'd catch some glimpse of them together. Hours passed. Around midnight, the front door opened. Rachel stepped out, her hair damp, her coat clutched tight around her. But she wasn't alone. Marcus followed, and in his arms, God, I can still see it. He carried a small duffel bag. She glanced around nervously, then touched his arm, and he kissed her forehead. They looked like a couple about to vanish together. Panic clawed at my chest. Was she leaving me? Was this it? Were they running away while I sat there like some pathetic spectator? My heart hammered so loud I thought it might shake the car apart. But then, instead of heading toward a cab or his car, they crossed the street to a shabby motel. I watched them disappear inside, the duffel bag slung over his shoulder like some dirty secret. I didn't sleep that night. Didn't move, didn't breathe properly. By dawn, when they finally emerged, I felt hollowed out, like whatever was left of me had been scraped clean. She went one way, he went another, and I sat there realizing I wasn't just watching an affair. I was watching a life unravel, and not just mine. The next day, Rachel came home early. She was softer than usual, almost tender, as though she sensed I was breaking. She cooked dinner, poured me a drink, kissed me longer than she had in months. And for a fleeting moment, I almost convinced myself maybe she was back for good. Maybe she had chosen me after all. But when she fell asleep beside me, her phone buzzed on the nightstand. It was a message. From Marcus. Just one line. Tomorrow. Same place. Don't forget. My hand shook as I set the phone back down. Tomorrow. Same place. My chest tightened. That bag, they were planning something. Something bigger than stolen nights in apartments and motels. For the first time, I wasn't just jealous. I was afraid. Afraid of what they were planning, afraid of what it meant for me, for us. Afraid that I'd already lost more than I could ever get back. I knew then I couldn't keep pretending. Whatever game Rachel was playing, it was spiraling into something dangerous. And if I didn't confront it soon, I wasn't just going to lose her. I was going to lose myself. The next morning, I woke with a pit in my stomach that no amount of coffee could burn away. Rachel moved through the apartment like nothing had changed, showering, humming, leaving half-empty cups on the counter. But to me, everything had shifted. That text from Marcus played in my head on loop. Tomorrow. Same place. Don't forget. I didn't know what same place meant or what she wasn't supposed to forget, but I knew one thing. This wasn't just about stolen kisses anymore. Something was being arranged, and I wasn't part of it. She left just after 10, claiming another work meeting. Her lies rolled off her tongue so smooth, it was almost impressive. I waited a few minutes, then grabbed my keys and followed. My hands were clammy on the steering wheel, sweat prickling down my back despite the cold. I wasn't just following her out of jealousy anymore. I was following her because I needed to know if I was living with a stranger or an enemy. She took a different route that day, not toward Marcus's apartment, but to that same shabby motel. The sight of her walking inside, shoulders hunched, head low, made my throat tighten. I parked across the street and waited, muscles tensed like I was bracing for a car crash. Half an hour passed before Marcus arrived. He carried another bag, heavier this time. I watched him knock once, glance around, then disappear into the room with her. My chest was pounding so hard I thought it might crack my ribs. I couldn't just sit there. I needed to know. So I did something reckless. I got out of my car and crept closer, hugging the walls until I reached the side of their room. The blinds were cracked just enough for me to catch a sliver of the inside. And what I saw made my stomach lurch. The bed wasn't the center of their meeting. The bags were. Rachel sat cross-legged on the floor, pulling out stacks of envelopes, papers, even bundles of cash. Marcus paced the room, talking fast, gesturing toward a map spread across the bed. My ears buzzed with the rush of blood, but I caught enough to understand this wasn't some cheap affair. They were planning something deliberate, something big. My first thought was drugs, then money laundering. Whatever it wasn't innocent. And Rachel, my Rachel, was in the thick of it. I stumbled back from the window, bile rising in my throat. Betrayal I could almost stomach. But crime? Lies stacked on top of lies until the whole thing reeked of danger? I wasn't prepared for that. I made it back to my car without them noticing, slammed the door shut, and just sat there, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. That night, she came home late. Her hair was damp again, her smile carefully painted on. She slid into bed beside me and whispered, "I missed you today." I stared at the ceiling, fighting the urge to scream. Missed me? While she was sitting in a motel room, plotting God knows what with another man. The hypocrisy was suffocating. I didn't sleep. Around 3 in the morning, I slipped out of bed and sat in the kitchen, the glow of the refrigerator light on my face. I thought about calling the cops, about blowing it all wide open. But what would I even say? That I saw envelopes and maps and cash through a window? That my girlfriend might be part of something criminal? They'd laugh me off the line. And besides, what if I was wrong? What if it wasn't crime at all, but some project, some fundraiser, something I'd twisted in my paranoid head? That's how deep into the spiral I was. I couldn't even trust my own eyes anymore. The next day, she left again. Same excuse, same routine. This time, I didn't follow right away. I waited, let her settle wherever she was going. Then I drove. But when I reached the motel, the room was empty. Curtains drawn, door locked tight. No sign of her or Marcus. Panic surged through me. Had they moved on? Chosen a new meeting spot because they sensed me watching? I circled the block 3 times before giving up. That night, when Rachel came home, I pressed her harder than before. Asked casual questions. Where'd you go? Who were you with? Why so late? Her answers were smooth, quick, the kind you can't argue against. But the way her eyes flicked left when she lied gave her away every time. And God help me, I let her think I believed her. Because deep down, I needed more. More proof. More clarity. More than glimpses through windows and scraps of overheard words. What I didn't know was that the clarity I craved was coming. And it wouldn't just reveal who Rachel really was. It would reveal a side of me I'd never met before. A side I wasn't sure I wanted to know. The breaking point came on a cold Thursday night. I remember the sharp bite of wind on my face as I sat in my car outside that same motel, headlights off, waiting. Rachel had left hours ago. I knew where she was headed. By then, her patterns were second nature to me. My chest felt hollow, my hands restless on the wheel. I told myself this would be the last time. Either I confronted her tonight, or I walked away for good. I didn't expect what I saw. Marcus arrived first, his bag slung casually over his shoulder. He didn't look like a man sneaking into a lover's hideaway. He looked like a man on business. 10 minutes later, Rachel appeared, bundled in her coat, her eyes darting nervously up and down the street. She slipped inside, and the door shut behind her. I waited, then forced myself out of the car. My legs felt heavy, but adrenaline kept me moving. I crossed the street, hugged the wall, and leaned close to the window like I had before. What I saw this time chilled me deeper than anything yet. On the bed lay stacks of cash, not hundreds but thousands. Envelopes, ledgers, a burner phone, a laptop glowing with spreadsheets. Marcus was pacing, talking quickly, pointing at the screen. Rachel sat at the edge of the bed, nodding, scribbling notes. This wasn't an affair. This was business, dirty business. And she was in it up to her neck. Then came the twist I hadn't braced for. Marcus opened a drawer and pulled out a gun. Small, black, polished. My stomach lurched. He placed it on the bed between them, and Rachel, my Rachel, picked it up. She didn't flinch, didn't hesitate. She checked the clip with the ease of someone who'd done it before, then slid it back into place. They spoke in hushed tones, too muffled for me to catch every word, but I caught enough. Next week, clean handoff, nobody can know. I staggered back from the window, heart thundering. She wasn't just betraying me with another man. She was betraying everything I thought she was. This wasn't the woman who used to fall asleep in my arms after long road trips, who laughed with me in late-night diners. This was someone else entirely. Someone dangerous. I don't remember the walk back to my car. I only remember gripping the steering wheel so hard my nails dug into my palms, blood slicking the leather. My mind was a storm. Call the cops? Confront her? Run? Every option felt like it would end badly. But one truth echoed louder than the rest. I couldn't live like this anymore. That night, when Rachel came home, I was waiting in the dark. She jumped when she saw me, then forced a smile. "You scared me," she said, tossing her coat on the chair. I didn't move. I didn't smile back. I just asked, "Who are you, Rachel?" Her face froze. For a split second, the mask slipped, and I saw her. The real her. Calculating, cold, deciding whether to lie or confess. Then she laughed, soft and dismissive, and said, "What kind of question is that?" I didn't answer. I just stared, and in that silence, something shifted between us. She knew I knew, and I knew she wasn't going to admit it. Not ever. So I let her play her role, let her kiss me goodnight, let her curl against me like nothing had changed. But inside, a line had been crossed. I wasn't her fool anymore. I was something else, something harder. The next morning, she left early. Said she had another meeting. I watched her go, the door clicking shut behind her, and I knew it was the last time I'd ever see her walk out of that apartment. Because while she thought she was leading a double life, she underestimated one thing: how dangerous a broken man can become when he's got nothing left to lose. I didn't follow her that day. I packed my things instead. Not neatly, not carefully, just stuffed clothes into bags, grabbed the essentials, left the rest. I didn't write a note, didn't send a message. I just vanished, the same way she had been vanishing on me for months. And maybe that was the cruelest revenge I could have chosen. Not screaming, not exposing her, not even demanding the truth. Just silence. Walking away without giving her the satisfaction of knowing what I'd seen, what I knew, how close I'd come to breaking. I rebuilt my life after that, slowly, painfully. Trust came hard, and sometimes I still wake at night with the echo of that gun glinting under motel lights. But I survived. And in the end, survival is its own kind of justice. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this: betrayal doesn't end the day you walk away. It lingers, like a scar you carry under your skin. You can live with it, you can even move past it, but you'll always feel it when the weather changes. And Rachel, wherever she is now, I hope she feels it too.